Hello. All right. Well, this is going to be sort of new stream independent newsletter number one. Today we're talking about a couple different things. Um, my name's Dakota, and I'm a leftist commentator. All right. So today we've got different things going on. We still have the Iran war, obviously, waging in the Middle East. Just give me 1 second to get this going. So ready. So sorry, about to get started. Just getting some stuff set up real quick. Hopefully everything sounds good and is running correctly. Fucking nap. Okay, we're all good. Here we go. All right, so what we got on the fucking newsletter today is Iranian President, I'll just bring it over here. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian declared that Iran considers itself in a full-scale war with the U.S. following a ninth consecutive day of American airstrikes, while regional mediators presented a 10-day ceasefire proposal. Concurrently, the U.S. Department of State issued a worldwide caution alert for American citizens. Vice President, JD Vance was infamously on Joe Rogan a couple days ago and made some questionable comments. He continues to be the government's bitch boy who just gets fucked around on talk shows. Plays a very like common sense liberal kind of guy but he is supposed to represent the the voice of this fascist empire. It never makes any fucking sense, and so he gets his ass chewed out essentially on Joe Rogan, The View, wherever he goes. He's just the administration's fucking lackey. Okay, moving on. So we've got the U.S. Department of State issuing a worldwide caution security alert, basically telling Americans around the world that it's dangerous to travel right now due to, largely American interference in the Middle East and the continuation of the war. This is straight from the U.S. Embassy. I think it's the U.S. Embassy of the UK. Um, Location worldwide due to heightened tensions in the Middle East. Security environment remains complex. Basically, don't travel to the Middle East right now because if you do, you might die, and that is due to the actions of the United States government and Israel. Moving on. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, I believe, declared Iran is in a full-scale war with the U.S. as the international mediators presented a temporary 10-day truce framework. Now, I don't tend to subscribe to the Times of Israel, but let's have a look here. We got the Times of Israel reporting that they're in full-scale war. Iran is in full-scale war with U.S. media as, yeah. Just let me see here. Yup, the IRGC is saying it's in a full-scale war, must be realistic and accept the natural consequences of its resistance. Doubled down on that statement. The top negotiator from Iran claiming that the U.S. military, the steps provided by Washington, is not interested in ending the recent escalation with Tehran. Americans keep bringing new military equipment to the region and claim they want to stop the war. They've bet on our intelligence being as low as their own IQ. We've reached a stage of mastery in recognizing these American games, and on that basis, we've prepared ourselves. Actions must confirm claims, not contradict them. So those are statements straight from Iran, basically saying, get the fuck out of our goddamn business, or I guess we're gonna go all the way to war. Also, we got the SpongeBob. I'm how okay. Here we go. Vice President J.D. Vance was in a 3-hour interview on Joe Rogan Experience where he said that elements within the Israeli government were attempting to manipulate U.S. public opinion to prolong the war indefinitely, telling. Oh, sorry. Stated the elements within were attempting to manipulate, prolong, telling those figures. This is a little bit paraphrased. We'll go to the video. So first things first, we had this is just a short clip, a little snippet from that interview,
where he defended the Trump administration's approach to Iran. Is acknowledged
of
files. Let's take a listen.
With any big group of people, you have a diversity of opinions. So sure, I'm sure that you have people who are influenced by defense contractors. There's a lot of talk about how much is the Israeli government influencing American politics, and there are certainly certain people within the Israeli government who hate the deal, and we see exact evidence. There was a Time story that came out yesterday that basically there are certain influencers in America who are being paid in order to attack the deal. I think some of it's just pure political ideology, right? It's foreign policy perspectives that are much different from mine. They think that America should that we can basically, you can wave a magic wand with the military and accomplish whatever you want. And, it's not that simple.
Elena, this was and
looking to see if we have any more choice clips here, because the other clip I have is just a whole, and yeah, so okay. So that's one thing he said. We have the entire interview here, and we're just gonna try to get some of the hot takes here without getting it's a 3-hour video.
Things on Instagram and Twitter.
Yes.
And they're just they look at an opportunity like that, like, oh, I found a gold nugget.
Yeah,
like this is going to give me money, or this is going to give me attention. This is going to give, oh, I can't wait to have a take on that.
Is that it's a cool town. It's got its own unique culture.
Frankly, irrelevant things.
Is a 50 vote threshold. And everything else, non-budgetary, is a 60 vote threshold. Now, as you can imagine, there's some gray area on things that maybe count as budget issues and should be 50, or are not budget issues and count at 60. So what we have tried to persuade the Senate to do is to treat the voter ID as something that can fall within the 50 vote threshold. And there is no law, there's no provision in the Constitution. It is legitimately that there are senators who are so attached to the idea that budget is 50, non-budget is 60, that they're quite literally willing to prevent voter ID in America.
Yeah, so basically they're just trying to circumvent the current laws to make sure they can get voter ID in America, which is to say restrict voting access for many Americans, whether it is redrawing the districts to not include primarily black or minority areas like Memphis, or if it's essentially increasing voting restrictions. They would call it something common sense like requiring voting ID, but the reality is the increased voting restrictions, like requiring you to have like your birth certificate or like your passport with you if you've had your name changed, either as a result of marriage or as a result of just legal name change, you will have a harder time voting. People say, well, fuck you, I have an ID, what's your problem? The reality is this stuff is not done to increase voting security. Generally speaking, as far as I understand, there is no evidence to support any massive voting fraud or conspiracy. If anything, Donald Trump and his lackeys have on multiple occasions either engaged in vote suppression or literally tried to stage an insurrection. The point I'm getting at is there's no evidence of that whatsoever. So when they do this stuff, it is just to make voting harder. And why do they want to make voting harder? It's because the harder voting is, the less people vote. The less people vote, only certain kinds of people show up to vote. If you make it harder if districts don't represent the minorities in them, then those votes mean less. If more people struggle to come out and vote, that hurts disabled people that already were going to have like mail-in voting. When they attack mail-in voting, for instance, that hurts disabled people, or people that are like, say, in like really rural areas, people that aren't just like a hop, skip, and a jump away from the polling booth. Basically, it just tries to tighten the grip on who can vote. They'll say it's all about common sense security. It's not. So that's all I hear when they say this shit to me, honestly. So let's just move on.
Ever seen a ridiculous, suggestive way imaginable?
I'm not gonna like humor any like little nonsense that they talk about.
Across different spheres of my life. I don't preach to people. I don't like walk into the White House, tell my employees, you need to follow Jesus as your Lord and Savior. I just try to live my life in a way that.
I'll jump ahead.
This is June 26th. This is very recently.
Yo.
Very wealthy people who are Christian nationalists who want this to be, they want it to, what is going on here, Jamie? What do you got? Bible stories become required reading in Texas public schools. Yeah, see? Well, now you're taking it to another level. So this is June 26th. This is very recently. That is that kind of thinking and that kind of mindset is what bothers me the most about some Republicans.
I see what you mean.
And then there's
See what you
people
mean.
that, again, they live their life in a very beautiful way, and they follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, and they're very admirable, and I think that's very attractive, and it makes people very curious about that religion. I think that brings people to Christ, and I think it brings people to religion.
Sure.
But then there's people like, did you read that report that came from at the start of the Iran war, where there was a guy who was an officer, non-commissioned officer, who was at a briefing, and this guy came in as explaining to them that they didn't need to be afraid because this war was important because Trump had been anointed by Jesus Christ to bring about his return. And the way Jesus is going to return is by bombing Iran.
I did not see that report.
Okay,
that sounds pretty far out there to me.
This is the kind of right-wing thinking. So here it is. Military commander tells troops bombing Iran is part of God's divine plan. So we started getting calls in the wee hours of Saturday morning from people saying their commanders were just jubilant about this, trying to tell people, don't worry, it's all part of God's plan. They promised a 200-mile-long river that is 4.5 feet deep, filled with nothing but the blood that their weaponized version of Jesus will spill at the battle.
Awful. I don't know. Just gross. We're gonna just move on. Fucking Christ.
And I've got friends, of course. I think, you've expressed some skepticism of this. I've got a lot of friends, both in private and public, who've expressed skepticism of this, who say, well, this is terrible. We disagree with the decision, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not a public commentator. My approach to this is not to Monday morning quarterback a decision that was made 3 months ago. My approach to it is to try to make it as successful as possible, which is why I poured my heart and soul into the. What is your proposal? What is your actual argument? So just take the Strait of Hormuz, like the narrowest, but in some ways the most important part of this back and forth right now. Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway. To the extent you shut down 25% of the world's energy supply, okay? Joe, you could take $100,000 and go buy a bunch of drones on the black market and post yourself on an island in the Strait of Hormuz or near it, and you could fire drones at those ships, okay? Now, what does that mean? Some oil and gas is still going to get out because some ships and some ship captains are going to say, screw you. Now, the United States can help that, right? We can shoot down some of those drones. We can shoot down some of those missiles, and so we can facilitate the flow of traffic. But the people who are like, you cannot negotiate with the Iranians, the reason why that's fundamentally idiotic is because so long as you have some person who's willing to fire off a few cheap drones, you're going to have some ship captains who say, no, 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 we're not willing to do this. So we got to kind of use all tools at our disposal. The military is one tool, but diplomacy is another tool. And I'm very frustrated by the Americans and, frankly, by people in other countries who are like, you cannot negotiate with the Iranians. Well, then what is your proposal to get people to stop shooting at ships in the Strait of Hormuz? You can bomb them. You can take away their radar. You can take away some of their drones and some of their missiles, but it's just too easy to fire at ships in the straits. So you've got to actually be willing to talk and to try to figure out the problem.
What is their proposal? The people that think you shouldn't negotiate with Iran.
I think that their proposal is to bomb and bomb and bomb. And the honest view, Joe, is that they do not actually have a solution.
It's just a classic example of where, like, I don't think what JD Vance is saying right now is like particularly unreasonable. He's suggesting that we might ought to engage more in diplomacy than just continuing a bombing campaign. The problem is that's not really how it's been going, and Iran is like maintaining their power over that territory because they've been attacked. And they said, okay, fuck it, fine. Then we're going to assert dominance here. We're going to assert control. We're actually going to shift the power out of America's hands, because we can't fucking trust y'all to just like act normal. I'm not justifying sort of certain actions by Iran's government. The reality is they were attacked by the U.S. and Israel in a joint strike that killed children. And so it's been tit for tat ever since. Israel has no intention of stopping in Lebanon. Iran made it very clear that Lebanon was a core part of the deal. Okay, so it's like, I don't know. I'm not saying Iran is like just and moral, but the U.S. is definitely not just and moral. And this war is continuing on mostly due to the U.S. Israel never was going to stop attacking Lebanon. They never planned to. They never respected that part of the deal. But it was contingent. The deal was contingent that we would hold Israel accountable over Lebanon, and we just didn't. We just said, fuck it, we don't care. So we essentially spat in the face of our own deal by saying we're not going to uphold this thing we said we would. So, point is, JD will talk very common sense and be like, oh yeah, we can't win this war by bombing. It's like, well then tell your fucking boss that, tell your fucking buddies that, because it doesn't really matter what you say, right? Like, that's what I mean. Like, you're the little bitch boy. You just up here to talk. The government's not acting around the things you're saying. The government is not showing interest in diplomacy over continued military interactions. We had 3 American service members die in the last week or two. I hear JD talking all fucking diplomatic, but I just don't see that. Like, it doesn't really matter what JD says if that's not the reality. So fuck JD.
If you actually ask them, what do you want us to do? What is the goal that you're trying to achieve? They'll say things like, we'll just bomb them to oblivion. Okay, we can do that. We can drop a lot of bombs.
Then do it.
What does that accomplish if there's still a crazy person who's still unwilling to shoot a few drones at the Strait of Hormuz?
He says we can do it. We can bomb. We can fix it with bombs and do it. I have a hard time believing that at this point, if we couldn't have just militarily gotten what we wanted, it wouldn't have already fucking happened. And like what he's saying is 2 different things that don't make sense. One is that, oh, we could definitely just bomb it we could just fix it with bombs, dude. But then he's saying, but someone could sit and lob missiles or lob drones and it's like, no, not if you do what you say you were gonna do. If you say, I'm not recommending it. I think you're a fucking idiot. And I think this war is a waste of American tax dollars, and it's needlessly interventionist, and it's making us look stupid. And it's also making it very clear how much we are like Israel's cucks, even though we have like way more power and resources than they do. They have an undue influence in our politics. We'll get to that later. That being said, we don't have the leverage in this war. If we did, it'd be over, and we don't. That's why we tried to end it, and then we didn't end it seemingly solely because Israel would not stop in Lebanon, never intended to. And then once that continued, once that continued on, it was just inevitable that the conflict would start again, and then the U.S. went back on its initial stance that they wanted to facilitate peace or whatever the fuck. Not happening because of Israel. But once again, we were supposed to hold them accountable, so you could blame us instead of Israel. Blame Israel. Either way, same fucking difference.
What the president has done, I think, very, very capably, is said we're going to use military force in this situation when it's connected to something we're trying to achieve. So if you shoot at ships, we're going to shoot at the facilities at which you used to shoot at the ships. But we're not just going to do something open-ended indefinitely. We're not just going to bomb and bomb and bomb. We're going to try to use our military force as one of the many tools that we have to solve the problem. And obviously, like, I'm biased, but I think that's exactly the right approach. I think you have to read between the lines a little bit, because if you look at what Mike Pence or some of the conservative hawks, like people who voted for us but have been very critical of me, very critical of the administration, if you actually look at what they're proposing, they just want the military campaign to go on forever, and they can't actually identify what it is that they're trying to accomplish. None of them can identify what it is they're trying to accomplish. And I read two things between the lines. I think some of them want us to accomplish a complete change in the government of Iran, to topple the clerics and to replace those clerics with somebody who's, much friendlier. But, like, look, what is our experience with doing that? It's
not
awful.
good.
It's not good, right? And so, like, if the Iranian people want to rise up and change their government, that's up to them. But we're not going to send 150,000 ground troops in order to accomplish a change in a regime unless the people on the ground themselves, what is our experience, want to accomplish that outcome. Now, we're not going to send the troops in regardless. It's not like good, to propose sending in the troops. Like, you're basically saying that the U.S. military should do the job for the Iranian people. We're not in that business anymore. We're just not. And then I think a second outcome that people are, whether they're aware of it or not, is what I call the Libya outcome. So if you look at the end result of our Libya policy after Gaddafi was killed by the Obama administration, by the way, again, a very stupid decision, what happened? Libya basically turned into a failed state. You had a refugee crisis. You had people pouring into Europe, pouring into other parts of Asia, other parts of Africa. You had a lot of violence, a lot of terrorism come from that. I do think that there are people who would like that to be the outcome in Iran. But then I say, again, what is in our interest? How is it in the United States' interest to have 94 million desperate people flooding into Europe, flooding into the United States, to have, sort of the terrorist infrastructure that can get established when you fan terrorists all over the world? We've run this experiment before. And so our policy right now, what we're trying to accomplish is get the straits open, ensure the free flow of oil and gas. Obviously, we want to keep the Iranians from having a nuclear weapons program.
We're doing a terrible fucking job. The straits were open. Oh my God. I can't even keep track of the timeline anymore. And originally, the straits were open. Then they were closed due to the war we started. Then they were open again, but with some restrictions. Then we were mad about those restrictions, so we went in and closed it again, as in blockaded the blockade. Then we had a momentary ceasefire proposal where the strait was completely fucking open and it was no problem. Then we were supposed to hold Israel accountable for not continuing to attack Lebanon. We didn't do that. We let them attack Lebanon continuously. Iran re-engaged into the war. Proposal was off, and now the strait's closed again. So the idea that we are like actively doing our best to open the strait is just not fucking true. Like, we obviously have other motivations. Like, if we wanted the strait open more than anything, we would do that. If we wanted to destroy Iran entirely, we would do that. There's either we can't do the things we say we want to do, or there's reasons why we don't do those things. Either way, I don't fucking know. I'm not the boss.
And using the tools of diplomacy and military power to accomplish that.
And Libya failing, and the
we're going to move on.
Really willing to change their behavior. We'd like to invest in rebuilding their country. Now,
we want to reinvest, the money. We want to
Americans
make sure to
first,
reinvest
and
in
that's
Iran after we destroy it.
theirs.
That way we have to
Political
spend the money on the
discourse.
bombs
I think
and
there are a lot of
the
social media
reparations.
campaigns that definitely influence Americans and affect Americans. Do I think that it's been dispositive on any particular issue? Like, I think that's a much more difficult question.
Do you
man.
think that we would have started this war in Iran without the influence of Israel?
I think the president, completely separate from any influence from Israel, believes very strongly, and again, I agree with this, that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon.
Right,
and I
but
think he was
after
willing
we
to do things.
Bombed them in June. Right, that was the initial attack, right?
June of last year.
Yeah.
Midnight Hammer, yeah.
Right. Do you think he would have continued with the most recent campaign if it wasn't for the influence of
Yes.
Israel?
Yes, I do.
Really?
I do. Yeah. Look,
Why
I mean,
do you think
I think again, and I see this, and I see it even from people that are in our coalition. And this would be my flip side to the hawks who have been attacking me or the president mercilessly over negotiation. I would sort of turn this back on some of the doves or some of the realists who have been attacking the president of the United States.
The doves? Those are the peace
Yeah,
people?
Peace people.
That's
yeah.
what you call them, the
Hawks
doves?
and doves. You never heard that phrase?
I've heard hawks. I've heard hawks. I don't think I've ever heard doves.
And hawks and pigeons, hawks and I don't know.
I think it's more doves is peace,
doves
right?
is
Many
good, right?
fucking
So-
bird names.
What I think a lot of people I've heard this argument is this idea that Donald Trump, was sort of. I've even heard people say he was blackmailed into this
Yeah,
by
a
the
lot of people
Israelis.
think that.
That's not true, dude.
No?
It's just not true. I've seen the decision making up close. Again, whether you agree or disagree with our negotiation, or whether you agree or disagree with the decision to launch the campaign Epic Fury to begin with, the idea that
No one
Donald
calls
Trump
it that.
is being like blackmailed is crazy to me. Because again, I see the way that he makes decisions. I see the way that he processes this stuff. Like the idea that he picks up the phone with anybody and says, hey, like I'm going to take orders from you. No, that's just not how Donald Trump operates.
Can you understand, though, why people would come to that conclusion, especially because of the Epstein files?
What do you mean?
Well, the Epstein files were supposed to be released, and there was a tremendous amount of resistance to those files being released, and that
Sure.
concerned a lot of people. Because if you're talking about very wealthy, powerful people that were engaged in crimes,
I see. So you're basically saying like the fear is that whatever's in the Epstein files was used to blackmail like the administration into doing the Iran thing.
or at the very least, the people that were involved in the Epstein files that didn't want them coming out had undue influence.
Well, again, like say this with all candor, like we absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files, like we just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No. I think the reason we screwed up the comms of the Epstein files is one, Pam Bondi said the client list is on my desk, right?
Well, they had binders. They were
100%,
standing in
right.
front.
But those binders were largely documents that had already been released, right? So let me try to
Well, what was
let
the
me try to defend.
purpose of that performative
Boom.
display?
The fucking on his face cannot be more clear. This man is so over this conversation. He's like, why won't you take my fucking bullshit answers? Why won't you take my half answers, my non-answers? Why don't you take my liberal? Like, I know he's a fucking Republican politician, but he's the most like liberal-esque, like wishy-washy, fucking common sense on the fence motherfucker ever. So it's ironic as shit that he's the vice president, and that's part of why I think he's like the bitch of the administration. Is that like he's not even really on board with the main mission. And then if anything, after the fucking, I think it was New York Times investigative journalism come out from the Situation Room that pointed to the fact that I should probably pull up a link right now. I'm not very professional, but pointed to the fact that JD was at odds with the administration's handling of the Epstein files. That he thought the cover up didn't look good. The point that I'm getting at is like, he's like canonically on the record as not being in line with the administration, which like puts them in a very weird place. You know, like obviously he's one of them. He's the fucking vice president. He's not separate from them. You know, he acts as an agent of the goddamn president. But then at the same time, he seems to be the one going on talk shows trying to give a very like common sense liberal take on everything when it's like you're the fucking vice president to a goddamn fascist. So it's just I don't know. It's hard to take it seriously. And then this shit. So he's, for one, I'm gonna back up. He's visibly gets annoyed that this questioning is continuing on. Like it's so mind blowing to me that I'm like, were you not media trained? I mean, that's almost admirable that you can't. You're not a very good liar, but this is not the first time I've seen JD just be on his fucking face, clear as day, like Jesus, you know. And it's like, bro, you're the fucking vice president.
He screwed up the comms of the Epstein files, like we just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No. I think the reason we screwed up the comms of the Epstein files is one, you know, Pam Bondi said the client list is on my desk, right?
Well, they had binders. They were
100%,
standing
right.
100%
But
had
those
binders.
binders were largely documents that had already been released.
Binders
right?
were lies.
So let me try to.
Well, what was the
defend.
purpose of that performative?
Seriously, Joe, can you not fucking drop it? Can you not fucking move on? Like, you're busting my balls, dude. Like, my job is to get my balls busted, and you are on my ass. I just cannot believe that the vice president can't even maintain. Like, he just can't. It's like, what?
Display of the Epstein files, and
And Joe is not letting him have it. Joe's not letting him get away. Joe knows. Joe knows. He's like, I got the weakest one here. I got the wishy-washy fucking liberal motherfucker right here. I can grill his ass, and he'll have to say something. The funny thing is too, if you ever compare like JD Vance and Donald Trump and their like rhetoric, Donald Trump would never fucking bother trying to like. I'm not saying Donald Trump never gives justification for anything he does. I'm just saying the way that like JD's job is to go and sit down and be like, oh no, like, well, that's never. Donald Trump is a cult leader. Donald Trump just says shit, like, and people that fuck with it eat it up. JD's job is to try to ride the middle line. I guess he's trying to appeal to moderates and like liberals, but it's like, brother, you're just the fuck doll of this administration. I don't know. It's brutal.
And she was saying there's tens of thousands of hours of film.
I don't know what the purpose of it was, but I know that the effect of it was to make people mistrust the entire effort. And what I think was happening.
Quick thing is that Joe just said thousands of hours of film, which is like, just to be clear, very different than like emails and whatever. Film is so different. And to be clear, so Pam Bondi was the goddamn attorney general at the time. Why was she just speaking out her ass like this? But JD is on the record, if you want to call it that, saying that he's not sure why she said that, which is to say she's lying. Which is to say when she said there were thousands of hours of film that they were going to like produce, that was just bullshit. She was just saying shit. And it's like, okay.
Look, I know Pam. I like Pam. I don't think there's anything.
I like Pam. I know her. She's my friend. We're good buddies. But when she said there were thousands of hours of incriminating film in the Epstein files, that was a fucking lie. She's a goddamn liar. Do not trust a word that bitch says. However, Pam is my good friend, and I respect her.
Performative display of the Epstein files, and she was saying there's tens of thousands of hours of film.
I don't know what the purpose of it was, but I know that the effect of it was to make people mistrust the entire effort. And what I think was happening, look, I know Pam. I like Pam. I don't think there's anything malicious going on. I think Pam was trying to respond to the political moment. I think she overstated what we had and what we didn't have. And I think that she got roasted for it publicly by a lot of people, including me. Like, you and I have talked about this a lot. I'm like one of the OG Epstein conspiracy theorists. I've probably gone down every single rabbit hole we could go down, most of them today. Look, the original sin of the Epstein investigation, and obviously I'm biased here, but it was not what Donald Trump and the administration did in 2025. It was, you have to go back to 2007, 2008. The original Alex Acosta investigation of Jeffrey Epstein, where he basically dropped the federal charges. I think Epstein ended up getting prosecuted on some sort of local thing. But the original warrant, you go to the original warrant back in 2008. What was he looking for? What was he allowed to look for? What were they collecting? It was not looking at a broader conspiracy. So that happens. Okay. Epstein gets pinched. I think he goes to prison, or maybe this is when he was on house arrest. But like anything that existed from the 80s and 90s up to 2006, 2007, anything that existed that we didn't get back then was disappeared. Right. So
It's just, look, I'm not, what the fuck do I know? I can tell you this, that I agree that there would have been, if decades or a decade or 5 years or any amount of time, meaningful amount of time passed, yeah, for sure, there would be the destruction of some evidence, for sure, unless they just wanted to be caught eventually. But at the same time, there is the Epstein files. Like, there is a comprehensive fucking bunch of compelling testimonies and evidence and stuff that is being intentionally withheld and heavily redacted in some ways, where they're covering abusers' names but not victims' information. Like, they prioritize protecting the fucking rich pedophiles over the actual victims of this trafficking ring. So I don't know. I just once again, I'm just like, brother, it's also so disingenuous because you are on the record of being like, I wish we were a little less sneaky about these files. And it's like, well, there you go, being sneaky. I don't know. I don't fucking believe you, bro.
Like when people say, has what you've seen on the inside make you think that that Epstein never blackmailed people, or that Epstein never engaged in broader sex trafficking? No, absolutely not. What I have seen, and I've looked at most of the files, is that there just wasn't dispositive evidence. And if that dispositive evidence ever existed, it was probably destroyed.
Yeah, so what was this, JD?
Is an ally.
Hold on.
Like, actually.
Yeah, he's kissing
Americans
Israel's dick right there, but instead,
I think the president, completely separate from Donald Trump. Well, again, like, say this with all candor, like, we absolutely the original sin of the Epstein, it was not 2008. He basically local thing, but the original warrant, you go to the original.
Stand though why people
up the phone with anybody and says, hey, like, I'm going to hammer. Yeah.
Right.
It's just not true. I've seen the decision making up with crazy. What do you mean?
Well, the Epstein files were supposed to be released. And there was
one more time with this shit, because I just cannot believe how much is said in this short window of time that is just like.
If you're talking about very wealthy, powerful people that were engaged,
whatever's in the Epstein files was used to blackmail, like, the administration into doing the.
Sorry, I'm not trying to like clip them out of context there.
Right. So you're basically saying, like, the fear is that whatever's in the Epstein files was used to blackmail, like, the administration into doing the Iran thing.
Or at the very least, the people that were involved in the Epstein files that didn't want them coming out had undue influence.
Well, again, like, say this with all candor, like, we absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files. Like, we just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No. I think the reason we screwed up the comms of the Epstein files is one, Pam Bondi said the client list is on my desk, right?
Well, they had binders. They were standing in front.
But those binders were largely documents that had already been released, right? So let me try to.
Well, what was the
defend.
purpose of that performative?
Yeah, no, I don't buy that JD has a visible like reaction of like frustration and like, fuck Joe, shit. We just drop it, basically like visibly being like, oh my God, it's like, you don't do that if it's all kind of bullshit. It's all kind of it's why, you just laugh and you go, I'm sorry, brother, there's nothing there. You're not gonna find anything. Like, we done looked and looked and looked, there ain't nothing there. There is a level of dismissal, there's a level of frustration clearly on JD fucking Vance's face that is just indicative of I mean, at the very least, it's look. They literally Donald Trump made a call shortly before he was murdered to Charlie Kirk to tell him to stop talking about the Epstein files. And it's like, I'm sorry, but that's okay. Also, Marjorie Trader Green, who was labeled a fucking traitor because she drew a line at child fucking. Um, yeah, it's just it's too many things to go. I believe you. You know, it's just like, oh man, the amount of things y'all apparently will do to cover this all up, calls you'll make, people you'll cancel. It's so important to you that it doesn't come out in its full details. Why? Like that's just what the American people want to know. Why? Why? Like it's so important to protect these people. We can't talk about it. Don't talk about it. You better not fucking talk about it, Charlie Kirk, you know, or whatever. It's just I don't know. It's people are over it. People are not buying it, and it's like you either need to be fully fucking transparent and say and show everything, or or we're just gonna assume the worst, frankly, and you deserve that because of just all of the various corruptions, all of your fucking lies, and essentially what appears to be a massive cover up, including throwing Pam Bondi under the bus. You say you like her, but then you say, "Oh no, she was a lying bitch. Don't believe a word she says." It's like, wasn't she like y'all's lawyer? Wasn't she like the government's lawyer, basically? So you just don't have no credibility in it. I don't know. It's hard to believe. We're gonna move on.
Display of the Epstein files
What we got here?
too.
Yes.
I mean, just for my own personal.
The constraint is not people tell me no. The constraint is you're just so busy doing other shit.
The UFO thing, I think, would be something that I would want to pursue.
Yes.
I mean, just for my own personal information, I would want to know what is going on.
Correct.
So the question is, are these special access programs that are above top secret and that this is our own stuff, or is this something that's far more bizarre and something that is interdimensional from another planet, whatever,
Correct.
fill in the blank.
Gonna be honest here. I mean, Joe's not, you know, Joe, while he is grilling the vice president here a little bit, he's giving him some pressure for sure, and he's talking about some things that are appealing to both sides of the argument. He's really not someone who is. I don't want to waste my fucking time on this UFO shit. Show me an alien, show me a ship, show me something. Until you show me anything, I don't give a fuck. And if I spend time sitting here with you, the vice president, talking about goddamn whether UFOs or what are they who knows what they, it's just sort of a waste of time. So that's very Joe Rogan coded to get into that, but we're gonna avoid that. I honestly want to wrap this up and be
Not
done
one of
with
these
this.
people who's like a hyper rationalist. Like I think that there are things happening in the world that we're not always seeing.
I completely agree, but I just don't want to hear it from the vice president. Honestly, it's fucking useless to me.
Now,
Well, that's that's a big if.
have you seen the movie The Age of Disclosure?
I've not.
Nah.
On this podcast by saying that.
Hey.
I think
Nope. Yeah, so Joe eventually moves on to just like, you know, classic I don't know. Oh, what do you like, chicken or fuck off? Okay. So that's JD Vance's embarrassing performance on the Joe Rogan Experience in great detail. I meant to be shorter about it, but it's fucking crazy. All right. We got the IRGC reported that 2 commercial oil tankers exploded and were immobilized after navigating the southern route through the Strait of Hormuz. I think I have it here. Guys, this is a different one, but here we go. Trump says that the U.S. Iran will pay for responding to our response, to the response of our response, to the response of our response. Yeah, so I don't know. It's just it's the tit for tat makes it hard to give someone a direct blame. It's like I guess you're all to blame for being at war, but technically, if the war is to blame, the person that started it would be to blame, right? You know, whatever. Okay. Rubio. Yep, for sure. Well, sorry, the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that Iran is using the Strait of Hormuz as leverage in the ongoing West Asia conflict, adding that other countries need to step up pressure to protect global shipping. Some people in Iran want to control the straits and hold that as leverage against the world. We'll stop attacking them. Let's see. We'll make sure the timeline's good here. So this was from earlier today. U.S. military says it's carrying out its 10th consecutive night of strikes on Iran. Yep. It's funny they're being like, well, it's almost all out war. Like, I don't know what the fuck exactly qualifies it. I mean, 10 nights in a row of bombing that seems to not have it. I guess the idea is that at some point Iran will go, okay, we're done. We're so sorry. I wouldn't hold your fucking breath. So whatever. Yeah, war. It's on the brink. It's all fucked up. All right. Um, let's not. Okay, let's back up. All right. So yeah, the war is all fucked. Blah blah blah. JD Vance is an idiot. And is there the Trump administration's bitch puppet fuck doll human fleshlight? Poor guy. But also no, he chose that job. So, all right. Regional mediators in the ceasefire argued a 10-day truce is vital to prevent total regional escalation and economic disruption, probably referring to the oil disruption again if we get into full-fledged war or whatever they're fucking talking about, then either ships will be in danger, essentially trying to traverse with the oil. That's probably the main thing. If war it re-engages, people cannot traverse the strait without being at risk of getting fucking got. So yeah, point being, if we would just get the fuck out of the war, everything it wouldn't fuck over the global economy. But we just can't help it because Israel is our daddies and kings. I do believe I recently heard that China had a major impact on preventing the sort of like economic fallout of all of this. They tapped into their oil reservoirs. Because essentially they make so much money off of everyone else's trade that if trade as a whole was disrupted meaningfully, it would actually hurt their economy. So it was kind of like a ROI, like a self-investment kind of thing. But still, it can only last for so long that certain countries kind of bail this whole situation out. So definitely want to get this whole fucking thing over soon and decide whether we want to cut Israel off forever. Okay. Um, where are we at? Where are we at? Yep. Joe Rogan, JD Vance, idiot. Uh, they're struggling the war. The war is bad vibes in the war. So administration figures defending diplomatic agreements argue U.S. foreign policy must remain independent. Lawmakers call for continued military strikes, maintain that non-intervention weakens global security commitments. I would actually argue that the intervention weakens our global security commitments as we continue on in the war. American military bases in sort of neighboring countries to Iran are a danger. And if anything, it highlights to those countries how much of a risk it is to have American military bases on your soil. If they can't even meaningfully defend against the strikes, then it's just a target on your back. And considering that all of this, the global economic instability, the threats to American lives, including the fucking what was up here, the goddamn Department of the State, the U.S. Department of State issuing a worldwide caution security alert advising Americans overseas. So yeah, all this like violence and chaos and everything is a fucking result of this interventionist war. If your gas prices go up, that's because of this. I mean, it's just straight up. It's a and Donald Trump's on the record. I could probably find that clip. Donald Trump's on the record of saying basically, I don't give a fuck. See if I can find this really quick. This is such bullshit. Don't listen to AI. This is just explanations. I probably can't find the clip I'm looking for, sadly. I'll just give up looking for it, frankly. Yeah, there's a clip of him coming out of fucking Air Force One where I think it's where he's coming out of Air Force One, and they're like, what consideration is like basically Americans' wallets on whether the war continues, and he was like, "It's not a consideration at all," and the only consideration is it's getting lost in the sauce. There's too much new shit. We won't worry about it. But yes, he's a cunt. Okay. Do. Trying to avoid that at the bottom there because I'm gonna get into that in a second. But yeah, so the war is a fucking bunch of bullshit. JD Vance is wishy-washy. Donald Trump is a hawk, or a hog, rather, either one. And it's just dumb. It's just dumb, and someone will pay the consequences eventually. Whether it's more American lives or more Lebanese lives, more Iranian lives, American taxpayers, the global economy, China, someone's paying for all this. So that's good and fun. We're gonna move on. Do everything else. Any more clips open? Bear with me. How do I use my computer? Boom. This was just a random thing. We got FCC threatening to take away American news licenses over basically not being state propaganda.
FCC Chair Brendan Carr threatened to revoke their licenses over the coverage, accusing the media of running what he called hoaxes and news distortions related to the war without evidence, saying, quote, "The law is clear. Broadcasters must operate in the public interest, and they will lose their licenses if they do not." To be clear, the FCC licenses, to be clear.
I'd love to hear what his explanation of this specific thing is. Like, what exactly are you trying to say there? Broadcasters are, it's fucking. I don't know. They should operate in the interest of delivering the truth to the public, but the idea that there is some specific public interest and that they must appeal to that is just an appeal to corporate media. It's not an appeal to truth at all. So it's just basically an attack on free speech.
Interest, and they will lose their licenses if they do not. To be clear, the FCC licenses broadcast stations, but not the networks. President Trump quickly backed Carr and falsely accused outlets of coordinating with the Iranian government to spread falsehoods, going so far as to say that outlets should be, quote, brought up on charges for treason for the dissemination of false information. Let's discuss with MS Now senior White House reporter Vaughn Hilliard and NPR media correspondent David Folkenflik. Vaughn, these latest threats from the administration drew bipartisan criticism. Here's Senator Ron Johnson.
I'm a big supporter of the First Amendment. I do not like the heavy hand of government, no matter who's wielding it. So, no, I would rather the federal government stay out of the private sector as much as possible. And really, the federal government's role is to protect our freedoms, protect our constitutional rights.
So that is a staunch Republican ally of President Trump, and that's how he sees it. What specifically is the...
Because it's just obvious, and honestly, there's a line for someone everywhere. I mean, obviously, there's going to be some loyalist cucks that just will do whatever they're told and will just go with whatever. Basically, they're just there for the paycheck, and they don't really have any morals, or if they do have morals, they're willing to just completely swallow them for their job. However, some people have a line. Marjorie Taylor Greene's line was the Epstein files. I believe Massey had issues with Israel and maybe also the Epstein files. Alex Jones recently was very critical of Donald Trump because of insider trading. People got a line somewhere, and so it's not shocking that for some Republicans, the line was, you're literally going to attack the news channels? The fucking corporate bought news channels. I mean, just a step back, I don't fuck with this. The reason I'm even doing this right now is because I don't believe in the corporate media. I want to take the information that's been dispersed from multiple sources and compare information and not feed into the fucking propaganda machine, enable people to actually have their own goddamn opinions, and yeah, just deliver like a different perspective. But the corporate media is fucking bought out. They literally almost exclusively do either Republicans do like literal state propaganda. CNN and CBS and all them, the liberal media, they kind of do a more subtle, but still, what is state propaganda? Like you know, it's status quo propaganda. It's anti DSA. It's anti socialist. You know, it's pro capitalist first and foremost. Um, yeah, but if they're attacking even those news channels, that means that information is under attack. God forbid a corporate media channel goes down. Someone like myself is next, you know, whatever.
White House so upset about, Vaughn?
Right, Anna, we should be clear. People like Ted Cruz have also spoken out against Brendan Carr's rhetoric and threats in the past as related to late night television hosts, for example, and Jimmy Kimmel. But when it comes to why in this White House, it's one person. It's Donald Trump, the president of the United States, who in a social media post this weekend said he is, quote, thrilled by Brendan Carr's threat to not renew licenses of these broadcast stations here. And it has to do with the fact that the president wants greater control over the news narrative.
It's not enough that like corporate media has like shareholders and like corporate interests that influence damn near everything they say, and that Fox News essentially functions as a goddamn state propaganda channel. That's not enough. Like they also like truly like every fucking last one of them has got to be pro like like if it's not actual state propaganda, it's not good enough, and that's just we're moving towards really nothing new. Only we're gonna have to rely more on independent media because this shit's just garbage.
About his policy in decision making. And this comes at a moment in time in which, over the course of the last 2 weeks, since he moved forward with the Iran military operation, there have been a litany of stories questioning the U.S. negotiators who are involved in the nuclear negotiation diplomatic talks that ultimately led to Donald Trump calling for the military operation to go forward, and have called into question what the long-term strategy is of Donald Trump in this White House. The type of headlines that have really brought the ire of Donald Trump and led to this moment here where he now has the FCC chair effectively threatening news organizations if they don't provide a better narrative around the Iran war, then they could potentially lose their broadcast stations, or at least threaten to have the FCC revoke them.
David Carr says the law is clear. Broadcasters must operate in the public interest, and they will lose their licenses if they do not. Isn't reporting the facts of the war in the public interest?
I mean, yes, evidently. That is absolutely why the broadcast networks really leaned heavily upon news coverage so many decades ago, when television news was, still evolving, to point to it as a public service as a way of justifying why they would have for their local stations these free grants of these licenses to operate in those markets. There are also First Amendment issues here, as Senator Johnson raised.
Okay, admittedly, I really want to move past the Iran war. So the FCC is the FCC chair under direction from Donald Trump, or at least the Trump administration or the Heritage Foundation or whatever. But we can just make it simple. Donald Trump making the FCC chair threaten news channels to take away their broadcasting licenses if they don't do more specifically pro-war coverage, which is literally just saying if you don't do imperialist state propaganda, which they already fucking do basically, then but if you don't really truly do it to a T, we will just you just can't even, you will no longer have a voice. And it's like, look, I fucking hate like Fox News, CBS, CNN, whatever. But this is an attack on free speech, and it won't stop at the corporate media. If anything, it probably won't start at the corporate media. They'll probably just buy them out instead. So I don't know. Just hard to see anything good about that. Okay. Yeah, get rid of this. We're going on to. I'm gonna put this down lower because it's throwing me off. We also got, we already went over that. Okay. So, moving on to the goddamn midterm polling. All right. National generic congressional ballot polling shows Democrats maintaining a 4 to 5 percentage point lead over Republicans heading into the 2026 midterms. In key primary contests, progressive slates endorsed by Bernie Sanders, AOC, and the DSA are mobilizing voters against record super PAC spending from groups like APAC, aka socialists in America, are fighting against the candidates who have been bought out by the lobbying groups that exist solely to promote Israel in America. It's pretty like, you know, I don't know why we would want to like prioritize a foreign nation over the quality of the life of Americans. So that just seems like an easy choice for me personally. All right. So, the national generic congressional ballot polling averages favors Democrats 49.2 to 43.9% over Republicans. I see. So 6%. It's less than 6%. Bad at math. Whatever. We're gonna go with this 4 to 5 point lead, but not bad. Not fucking bad. All right. So far the Democrats are looking good over the Republicans. Probably win the House, but we'll see. Things can change, but it's looking good. We got Bernie Sanders and AOC held a joint campaign rally in Lansing, Michigan, supporting Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed ahead of the August 4th primary. Did I get this pulled up? Fucking, I think it's this one.
So the attacks on Haley Stevens are also at issue. I know there are a lot of attack ads against you, but there are so many attacks on Haley Stevens that on Friday you posted, quote, "It's become impossible to ignore the way that people online make fun of my opponent for things that have nothing to do with her policies or politics. It's unkind and unhelpful," unquote.
So this is centered around the fact that Abdul Assad and Haley Stevens are the sort of dueling Democratic candidates for this Michigan primary. The problem with that race is that Abdul Al-Sayed is essentially accepting like no corporate PAC money. Like he's got a grassroots campaign. He's running on, you know, your classic DSA slate. So like, you know, healthcare, getting money out of Israel, etc. Haley Stevens is the institutional incumbent Democrat vibe, and she is most notably shown her support for Israel with a clip saying, "I see Israel in my dreams." Now, what Abdul is talking about here is let's not make fun of her voice and her like Michigander, Minnesota nice type vibe, because that has nothing to do with her politics. And I agree. And I think Hassan has actually pointed out recently that it kind of seems like she almost dials that up to distract from the fact that she'll dodge any question about like, you know, Israel's violence or anything meaningful, or like, you know, basically classic politician shit where she just dodges a question, but at the same time she slaps some Minnesota nice on it. So you just fucking want to make a little clip about talking about how silly she is. So Abdul is suggesting that we should talk about, you know, the fact that she's taken, she has $50,000 in corporate PAC money, a lot of it from APAC, because she's a devout Israel supporter, and she's one of the kind of remaining institutional Democrats that is like support of Israel is, you know, fucking bonded with the Democrat Party, even though most of the Democrats, especially the DSA, have decided that what Israel's doing is a fucking genocide, and we're not interested in sending any more American money there. That's not how Haley Stevens feels. And Abdul Assad tries to point that out and would like to not focus on the fact that she's a silly Michigander with a funny little Minnesota nice accent.
It's true that there are some really harsh comments about Haley Stevens that I've seen. Here's one. Quote, "She's a suit with a large APAC bank account. That's it. She can't string together two coherent sentences. She's a sellout who forgot how to think for herself. Corporate money can't buy her a personality." Do you know who said that? That was you and your campaign.
And I want to speak to that because every single time we talk about all the outside money coming in as a crutch in this election, it seems as though we're not hearing any explanation as to why. I think we saw some of it last week when the Congresswoman voted in favor of sending $3.3 billion of our tax dollars that should be spent on our healthcare and our schools to a foreign government to buy bombs and tanks. I would really like to hear
And
a fulsome
bulldozers.
explanation of exactly what the trade-off has been. And unfortunately, $50 million doesn't fall off trees, doesn't come from nowhere. It comes because there's been some expectation on the back. So I want to know what was said to get that money into this election. But I'll be clear, I don't think it's kind to make fun of somebody for how they talk or how they show up. I also don't think it's kind to make insinuations about somebody's character as is being done to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. And here's the thing about it. I've known the Congresswoman for a very long time. In fact, she's met my daughters. My daughter, 8 years old, she told her, you should be really proud of your dad, although her allies are now running ads to say that somehow I'm disrespectful to women, which my daughter is now hearing about. So I'd like to hear the same kindness. I want to know whether or not the Congresswoman also thinks that that's unkind and unright.
I hear your comments about the ads being run against you that are attacking you from AIPAC and other organizations, but I'm specifically talking about comments you personally made.
The fucking $50,000 or whatever, and sort of like, targeted slanderous ads. Ignore that. You were sassy at one point about this lady who supports genocide unilaterally. What the fuck is up with that? This is that classic. Where are we? We're on Forbes. It's that classic. Like, I don't know what this dude's political alignment is. Like, but if he would describe himself as like a Democrat or a liberal, the problem is he is somehow able to be like, well, that's rude, and then also not give a fuck about, like, you know what I mean? Like, the priorities are not there. Like, you're not a man of the people. You're like a man of capital, I would guess. So like you follow the money, perhaps. I mean, it's Forbes, but I don't know. Just the way he is likening, like I said, slanderous, corporate bought, fucking foreign, they're from a foreign lobbying group, like, to influence our politics in America, but we don't look at that. Don't think about that. Let's talk about how you were rude to Haley Stevens. Go fuck yourself, you fucking liberal piece of shit.
About Haley Stevens.
Yeah, no, I already told you. I think she's plenty smart, plenty capable. I just want to understand why it is that she's been willing to take $50 million from organizations that have their best interests and not Michiganders' best interests at heart. I've been up and down my state. I actually did the work of traveling 110 different cities, 475 public events. And where I go, people ask me, how come I can't afford my groceries? Why is my gas so expensive? How am I going to afford healthcare? And it's crazy to me that you want to run for U.S. Senate and you want to take money from the very same people who are raising prices on everybody. So I just think we need a fulsome explanation. I would like to hear it. I think the Congresswoman has had plenty of opportunities, and I think this is one of them now.
Just to be clear, the money being spent on her behalf is not money going to her, but I understand the point you're making.
Whatever. Okay. AIPAC spends nearly $30 million on Stevens over Al Sayed in Michigan Senate primary. Its largest single race investment ever. Why? What's the deal, man? For one, why does she need this much money if she's a good politician?
China, and to create more of those good manufacturing jobs.
I have a simple message. I want money out of politics. Be clear. I'm somebody who's never taken a dime of corporate money to run a campaign.
Then the roundtable weighs in on Michigan's primary.
It really just depends on what the national mood looks like in the general election, I think.
Marvin and I talked about this before when he did campaigns. This is going to be a get out the vote campaign.
The endorsement of Donald Trump for John James certainly boosts the mega crowd and inspires some others, but it also motivates a whole lot of people on the other side.
Michigan Matters is brought to you in part.
Okay, so AIPAC and its affiliated groups have spent close to $30 million backing Stevens, their largest investment ever in a single race, as they seek to defeat progressive favorite Abdul Al Sayed in the August 4th primary. God, it's so soon. Stevens has largely avoided discussing the organization directly, even as its spending has reshaped the race. So she just won't talk about it. She's like not interested in talking about AIPAC, even though like she is an AIPAC bot candidate. Asked twice about AIPAC during a July campaign stop in West Michigan, she responded for more than 800 words without mentioning the group a single time. Israel came up only once when she said she wanted to see the U.S. and Israel working together to rebuild Gaza. So after Israel spent years and billions of dollars of American tax dollars and arms and bombs and bullets, but the important thing now is that the U.S. and Israel will rebuild Gaza. I don't know. It's hard to tell what the fuck y'all even want. I'm not saying you shouldn't rebuild Gaza. You fucking owe them reparations for generations, but that's not what you're gonna do. And why destroy it just to rebuild it? That is it because you want to take it? Because you want to colonize it? Like just call it what it is. Stop being so fucking shady about your goddamn barbarian genocide. Okay. Anyone who supported me is supporting me because of my dedication to the people of Michigan and the things that I've said for Michiganders, Stevens said to AP News. Yeah. Okay, so she just literally didn't. Once again, she was asked about AIPAC and she responded by not really mentioning it at all. She didn't even say no. She was just like, anyone who's supporting me is because I'm from Michigan. This is what the bullshit is. Okay. And this exchange illustrates how politically fraught AIPAC has become in democratic politics as the war in Gaza has divided the party over U.S. support for Israel. AIPAC works to elect lawmakers who support its mission of strengthening the U.S.-Israel relationship and advancing policies it says enhance the security of both countries. AIPAC did not respond to shit. The organization's super PAC, the United Democracy Project, keeping in mind, if you ever see this, the United Democracy Project, it sounds very nice and sort of like, oh, democracy, it's united. Yeah, this is just another name for like AIPAC or like, AIPAC, Super PAC, which is to say a fucking lobbying group over this lobbying group that is either way, goddamn AIPAC, it's Israeli political influence in America trying to literally buy out our elections. Like we don't even have a real democracy. We have a foreign nation spending, one more time, $30 million to try to influence our elections. That really fucks up the whole democracy thing. And I don't want Israel involved in our elections at all, unless we're talking about whether to cut off aid to Israel because they're bleeding American tax dollars and literal babies. Okay. Yep, AIPAC didn't respond. The issue carries particular weight in Michigan, home to the nation's largest Arab American population. Beyond Michigan, Al Sayed's progressive. This is why they're fighting so fucking hard, is that they want to keep these Arab Americans disenfranchised. Not to make some sort of claim that Abdul Al Sayed is just he may be an Arab American man, but he's a fucking Michigan politician. But it would be bad for white people as a brand if these Muslims are to prevail. Okay, beyond Michigan, Al Sayed's progressive allies are framing the race as a broader test of whether grassroots organizing can overcome unprecedented outside. Yeah, if Abdul wins this fucking race, this is also why this is so terrifying for the right, is like if he or even the left, he's fighting a Democrat. He's not even gotten to the point where he can fight the right yet. If he wins against her, then it means all that fucking money ain't worth a fuck. You know what I mean? Like you could spend 30 million, 50 million, keep it coming, $1 billion, whatever, on goddamn AIPAC, anti-Muslim, pro-Israel propaganda. And it doesn't fucking matter because you can actually just come out, say the right shit to the right people, and people go, you know what, this fucking guy is actually has got some stuff. I want to check him out. So it's just if we actually get that result where Abdul wins in spite of him doing a grassroots campaign versus $30 million in AIPAC money, that's crazy. We'll see. Very hopeful. All right. Yeah. One of the laws of nature and politics is whoever spends the most money wins, says AOC, who has been campaigning for Al Sayed in Michigan this weekend. It's an opportunity to show that things other than money can win in America. Love AOC. The four-term congresswoman raised half of what Al Sayed did in the latest fundraising project, period. God, until June 30th. Her team said in a statement that the campaign is raising the resources we need to win the race. She spent only $12,000 of her own campaign funds on advertising through early July before bumping it up to close to $1 million, according to Ad Impact. Outside organizations, meanwhile, have poured close to $50 million into boosting her candidacy. One of them, a Stronger Michigan, has spent roughly $12 million without disclosing its donors. El Sayed has made AIPAC and the tens of millions of dollars spent to support Stevens, a centerpiece of his campaign. He and his allies have accused Stevens as being a mouthpiece for her large donors, for sure. She is nothing more than an employee of these billionaires, said Bernie Sanders, who's campaigning with Al Sayed in Detroit, Lansing, and Grand Rapids. Haley Stevens has said she reports comprehensive campaign finance reform. What do you fucking mean, lady? Most voters are unlikely to realize many of the ads blanketing Michigan's airways are funded by AIPAC. They never mention Israel, instead highlighting Stevens' work on manufacturing and featuring former President Barack Obama. So you have a foreign nation, Israel, paying for ads that run in America and Michigan to influence a political race so that they can get more favor in the US Congress. And they're even mentioning, like, they're using Barack Obama and his clout, which I don't even like Barack Obama, and most leftists don't either. But to be like, come on, I mean, Obama likes her. It's like, Jesus, this is fucking desperate. AIPAC never runs on AIPAC. They never even talk about Israel and Palestine. They just, there's influence shift from the shadows. Former Representative Amy Levin, whom Stevens defeated in the 2022 Democratic primary after redistricting. AIPAC spent millions opposing Levin, who is Jewish. If you're just a voter and you see a million ads, you don't know who paid for it. That's very true. It's more of that like undermining our democracy type shit. The surge of spending from AIPAC comes as the Democratic candidates have taken sharply different positions on Israel's war in Gaza, a dynamic that was already shaping the field a few weeks earlier when Senator Mallory McMorrow abruptly ended her campaign, narrowing the primary. Blah, 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 blah. So there's only the two left in Michigan. And then the Michigan Democratic primary election. While Stevens is not Jewish, she has been along. Yeah, Stevens is not even Jewish. She's just like a Michigander who loves Israel so much. And she has literally said, described herself as a pro-Israel Democrat, and once said during a Hanukkah celebration that Israel comes to me in my dreams, says the highly patriotic American Michigan woman. Israel comes to her in her dreams, and that is why you need to vote for her as a congresswoman in Michigan. What a fucking joke. Okay. Stevens has criticized Benjamin Netanyahu. Well, then you better get more critical, bitch. I'm gonna ditch out of this. Let's see. Hold on. The war in Gaza begins after Hamas October 7th attacks. We're aware of that. About 1,200 people were killed and 250 were taken hostage. Over 1,000 days that war is waged on, and just to keep in mind, just keep the numbers in mind. So 1,200 people were killed in the terrorist attack. They took 251 hostages. Israel has killed more than 73,000 Palestinians in its retaliatory offense. Is that so? There's 73,000 members of Hamas, or like how many babies were in between the bullets in Hamas? And yeah, so that's just sort of disproportionate, I think. Whatever. And so basically, this is what we're funding. We're funding the death of 73,000 Palestinians, at least, and counting. Those are rookie numbers. We'll get them up. And this is the deal with that. So that's, AIPAC has spent $30 million on Haley Stevens. This is the polling data. I was going to look at this real quick. What we got? So Democrats up by points. Pretty incredible. And the Republicans took a dip. They're kind of trending back upwards. I really hope that doesn't continue. We'll see. Yeah, so those polls are out of I guess this is damn near about the president approval rating. We got 59% of Americans don't approve, 36% do approve. Favorability of the Democratic Party? Unfavorable +12. The Republican Party? Unfavorable +15. Huh. So it's strange with this because they only have those two parties, and it's like, yeah, everyone's mad at both the parties. So I don't really know what this tells me. Okay, here, moving on. This was a rally that Abdul had with Bernie Sanders and AOC. Detroit. We're not going to focus on this too much. Just basically highlighting he's got some really strong DSA backing. He actually gives a fuck about Michiganders. He's not just playing a character. He's not interested in sending your tax dollars to a foreign nation to kill babies. And that just works for me. I like it. I wish I lived in Michigan. I could vote on this. So, maybe fucking spread the word. Okay. Moving to Arkansas news. Let's see. Catching up. Bada bing, bada boom. Here we go. All right. So we got. Let's start with this video.
Lots of noise and lots of heat. That's one way to describe those giant data centers and the debate over where to build them. That's how we're starting tonight on THV 11 News at 10. I am Rolly Hoyt, and Brooke Buckner has the night off. Big tech companies are building these huge buildings filled with computers. They power the AI learning models that answer our questions and promise much more as the technology improves. But they take up a lot of space, and they draw a lot of power and water. And that has set up local battles when companies like Google try to build, including right here in Arkansas. And it's all making for a heated debate. THV 11's Catherine Rowley talks to experts for guidance to help you sort it all out.
How is this going to affect employment? Will it bring in new jobs? How many? The second is, how will this affect, anything? Will it affect prices in some way?
Economist Jerry Horpendahl says that's some of the biggest questions circulating in communities with most people wanting to know. How will these data centers affect the environment and public health?
Heat impacts from
Making a radical dynamic choice right now. I should have done this earlier.
That same research showed that surrounding temperatures increase.
So that's terrible for continuity, but will be the way I keep it going forward, probably.
Some areas seeing increases as high as 16.4 degrees.
These concerns may be valid, but supporters say that projects will create more job opportunities. However, Professor Horpendahl says that he examined the data and believes the trade-offs might not be worth it.
The research suggests those are actually going to be fairly small. It'll add some jobs, but not as many as if it was a manufacturing facility the same size. So maybe a few hundred jobs rather than a few thousand.
He also looked at how these new centers would affect energy rates. And although they require massive amounts of water and electricity, he says it may not change your bill that much.
Those maybe raise electricity prices by 1 or 1.5%. In total, that's not even an annual ongoing. That's a one-time increase. They're paying for any upgrades to the infrastructure, which then those benefits get spread over all the users.
Property tax revenue is another area that could see a massive impact.
The data centers pay half of the property taxes for the county, and they've been able to reduce property taxes by 40% over the past 10 years.
He says Arkansas's lower energy costs have already attracted data center companies, which could lessen the need for large tax incentives.
I think Arkansas is already well positioned enough that we probably don't need to offer huge tax breaks to them.
Little Rock
Okay. So we're just going to go through this real quick. Little Rock Sustainability Commission Data Center Committee meeting. They had a meeting in Little Rock. Did I watch? Oh, it's up. It happened yesterday. Okay, it was a Microsoft Teams meeting. Never mind. My bad. Moving on. Okay. So we got an article here. 4apeople.org. This is titled Data Centers in Arkansas Part 1. Why so controversial? At least 5 data centers have been approved across Arkansas, 2 in Little Rock, 1 in West Memphis, 1 in Conway, 1 in Clarksville. These data centers support and power technologies like artificial intelligence, data collection and management, and other tech that requires immense amounts of data storage and processing power. They're largely being built by mega corporations like Google, Amazon, Meta, and their various subsidiaries. What does it mean for Arkansas at a moment when prices across the board are rising quickly due to a combination of international conflict, tariffs, and corporate consolidation? Citizens are raising questions about the need for these data centers and the effect they will have on our state. The speed with which data centers are moving into Arkansas, the lack of state policy addressing them and their impacts, and the lack of transparency surrounding them raises serious questions for our states. In this series, we'll explain what data centers are, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Arkansas, a data center contains hundreds of thousands of computers linked together so they can be efficiently powered and cooled. They also share data between themselves faster when they're close together. We've had data centers in the past. In the past, they were reasonably sized buildings, similar to other corporate holdings. It takes slightly more power and water than a regular office building. Modern data centers, however, are totally different. You may notice when you use its if you overuse your computer, it overheats. Basically, what it's saying. CPU tower runs loudly. Basically, computers they gotta run a lot of stuff. They run hard. They run hot. There you go. Okay, so there's servers where the internet lives. Every time you send something to the cloud, you're sending it to a data center somewhere else. All right. Now, what's controversial about them? Their size. Modern data centers can be the size of several football fields and contain several thousand servers. The data center in West Memphis, for instance, will cover over 1,000 acres. That's about 43 million square feet, or just about 750 football fields. This kind of size means the environmental impacts to construction sites are huge. One of the Little Rock centers is slated for an area near Sweet Home, close to several farms, and near the river's wetlands. This is going to have a big environmental impact downriver. Okay, I want to pause and just address this first. This is what I want to draw attention to. So if we live in Arkansas, the natural state, where it's like, river and forest and lakes and all the deer and the goddamn whatever. Well, that's not gonna fare well when we put a bunch of fucking data centers in and like toxify the local water supply and just generally fuck over the environment. Makes no fucking sense. It's actually completely contradictory to, I think, the concept of Arkansas. It makes no. Arkansas politicians are selling out Arkansas land. They're exploiting it for money. It's just that simple. But like, you should be fucking pissed. Like, if you live in Arkansas and you believe in the concept of Arkansas, if you came here because you think it's pretty or natural or quiet or whatever, well, that's gonna fucking be gone soon. Because of the people you vote for. So keep that in mind. All right, power requirements. Pulaski County alone will have 2 huge data centers, according to the Arkansas Advocate. The center built by AVAIO. Actually, don't know what that stands for. I'm gonna find out so fast. It is the. It never told me what it stands for. It's fucking. They build massive AI-ready hyperscale data centers, campuses across North America and Western Europe, offering turnkey built, blah, blah, blah. Arkansas Project Leo, a $6 billion up to 1 gigawatt data center hub planned near Little Rock on a 760-acre site. So that's cool. The center built by AVAIO may be the most power-intensive nationwide, drawing up to 1 gigawatt of power from an already strained power grid. That's power that won't go to other consumers, and those consumers may get to foot the bill for the increased demand. These huge power requirements stem from artificial intelligence, massive computing needs, multiple data centers on a single grid can have compounding effects too. Entergy, Arkansas, claims that it can handle the increased load. They also wouldn't tell reporters from the Arkansas Advocate just how much power the new centers would use each per day. That's very convenient. Their water requirements, according to Central Arkansas Water CEO Tab Bohannon, just one of the 2 Little Rock data centers could use up to 4 million gallons of water per day on hot days. CAW states in its 2024 financial report that the maximum daily water consumption is just over 100 million gallons. So just one building could use roughly 4% of CAW's total capacity. While CAW claims they can handle demand, I have to check real quick. What, Central Arkansas Water, maybe? That's what it stands for. So that's sort of like the water solution for Central Arkansas. It says they can handle the demand. There's some who are skeptical of that and worry that other states' water issues may be coming to Arkansas, compounded by the data centers. The lack of the piss. I grew up on the fucking river. This makes me so mad. I will fight people. Okay. The lack of transparency surrounding site selection and municipal agreements, as reported by the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Isn't that local? I don't know that. I don't think it's local. Graduate University, Mississippi River Basin. Not sure. Regardless, Arkansas Democrat Gazette reported multiple municipalities that have agreements with companies building data centers have signed NDAs or non-disclosure agreements. This means the city, an NDA just means you can't talk about it. So basically it was saying that the local governments of some of these areas have already signed NDAs. They can't talk about it. Little Rock, West Memphis, and Conway officials or members of the City Chamber of Commerce have all reported. Little Rock, West Memphis, and Conway officials or members of the City Chamber of Commerce have reported signing these documents being NDA agreements with data center holders, data center manufacturing companies, whatever, saying they won't talk to anyone about it. Because they know full well people will come to them and ask questions, and then they legally just can't talk about it. I just can't say anything. Well, that's the fucking choice you made. You signed an NDA because you don't give a fuck about Arkansans. You just don't. So I'm unwilling to even pretend with that shit. Okay. The matter of how the agreements between the companies and municipalities were signed in an op-ed to the ADG, Little Rock directors Kathy Peck and Kathy Webb said the plan for the Little Rock data center was presented with little notice at a meeting. When companies require NDAs and city leaders are being asked to vote on these centers with no time to fully consider the issue, Arkansans should pay attention. That lack of transparency is never a good sign. That means we can't figure out how sites are selected, the true cost of the center, or the details of the agreements between centers and data center companies. So yeah, it's just, like once again, Arkansas politicians, aka the currently elected Republican politicians that you think give a fuck about your conservative values or your natural state or your goddamn, your rivers and your forests and your whatnot. They're just gonna turn Arkansas into. They're just gonna fucking put data centers where all the goddamn natural state nature is supposed to be. That should disgust you. And if they not to mention that they're talking about bringing water issues to Arkansas and possible harm on nearby rivers, which is just so against what Arkansas stands for. If you're some fucking redneck, good old boy, yeehaw, whatever, and you hear that and it doesn't make your fucking blood boil, you're a goddamn bootlicker, and you should be fucking ashamed of yourself. So just put that out there. Okay. Backers of a proposed Arkansas constitutional amendment that would make citizen-proposed laws and constitutional amendments a fundamental right submitted 108,000 petition signatures for the deadline on July 3rd. Let's see. Secretary of State Cole Jester's office must verify that at least 90,000 came from registered Arkansas voters for the proposal to be eligible in the November ballot. It was down to the wire. Folks were working till about 4 a.m. We got the final tally at about 5 a.m. I don't know who slept, not me. This ballot measure would amend Article 5, Section 1 of the state constitution, which governs the initiative and referendum process, protects Arkansas rights. Protect our AR rights. The coalition sponsoring the proposal says the amendment is intended to strengthen direct democracy and protect the rights of citizens to sign and circulate petitions. I completely fuck with this. I think that our democracy is under attack. I think that we as voters and constituents, our opinion is less and less relevant. These politicians are doing things without even consulting us. They're being elected into office and then not doing what they're told. Like, just generally, it's a system of fraud that is meant to manipulate us into voting for these bastards that just don't give a fuck about us. And that's a form of fraud in my eyes. It's a form of perjury. So yes, okay. If the group collected at least 75% of the required signatures, then it would qualify for a cure period to give them more time. So hold on. My God. We're confident, and we hope the bureaucracy does not go weaponized against us. The proposed amendment would, among other provisions, make the citizen initiative process a fundamental right, require the government to notify citizens before it rejects their signatures and give them a chance to correct them, allow the legislature allow the legislature to amend or repeal an initiated act by a 2/3 vote by not allowing it to amend a constitutional amendment approved by the voters. Require lawsuits against provisions to provide clear and convincing evidence. Require lawsuits to be filed. This is what it all entails. I'm not going to read all this. You can read it online if you want to. Protect AR Rights is a coalition of nonprofit groups that includes the Arkansas Education Association, Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families, the Arkansas State Conference of the NAACP, the Arkansas Public Policy Panel, the Arkansas Citizens First Congress for AR People, and the Arkansas Appleseed Legal Justice Center. Two other groups that sought ballot access but did not submit the signatures in time. One Save AR Democracy also sought to strengthen the state's direct democracy project. It was led by the League of Women Voters for Arkansas. I guess they did not meet their deadline for their ballot access. The other one, For AR Kids, sought to qualify the Arkansas Educational Rights Amendment. It would have required all schools receiving public funding to comply with the same accountability standards, among other provisions. That's amazing. It should have happened, but it didn't for some reason. Several laws were passed by the Protect AR Rights, said it would make it more difficult for citizen-led initiatives to qualify for the ballot. Passed that. Yep. Legislators suggested that they were needed to ensure the integrity of the initiative and referendum process. Basically, they don't want your say. They don't want to empower your say. They say, get the fuck out of the way. In a lawsuit led by the League of Women Voters, U.S. District Judge Timothy Brooks on June 30th issued a summary judgment against much of that legislation after issuing a preliminary injunction last November. Protect AR Rights had joined the lawsuit. Among the provisions Brooks ruled against were those that required canvassers to read the ballot title out loud or have petition signers read the ballot title before signing, required canvassers to verify voters' identification before they could stop petitions, and required canvassers to inform petitioners that petition fraud is a crime. Because of the injunctions, said canvassers did not attempt to comply with those particular laws. Diaz said the amendment is still needed even with the favorable court ruling. The legislature can still put new restrictions in place. We have an injunction on what they did in 2025. This is not an injunction that applies to future laws that have yet been whatever. So the group started with volunteers and then also employed paid signature gatherers. It received a $933,000 donation from the National Education Association. It had about 500 volunteers and more than 400 paid canvassers. Volunteers collected 35,000 of the 108,000 signatures. So people in Arkansas, they want a fucking say in these things. Flock cameras too. Arkansans, break your local flock cameras. It's not this stuff is not, it's not Arkansan. It's not the vibe. I'm not any kind of good old boy. I'm not any kind of redneck or hillbilly, but I was born and raised here on the river. All I want to see is that the fucking animals and the nature are fine, that the fucking, like, the poor people and the kids are, like, fed and shit, that, like, we get fucking opioids and meth off our streets. Like, I just want, like, Arkansas people to live normal fucking lives regardless of their politics. But the reality is, whether you like the Democrats or not, you like the DSA or not, in Arkansas and other states too, there are currently Republican Congress people, Republican representatives that don't give a fuck about you or Arkansas values or conservation or anything. Like they just genuinely, like, I just don't know how to, like, make this make sense to y'all, but like they are selling Arkansas out because they don't give a fuck about it, because they're rich people that don't like Tom Cotton doesn't even live in Arkansas, so it's like they have no incentive to actually get it's like, I don't know, these fucking people. It's like in the movie Don't Look Up. At the end, all the rich people fly away because they don't actually value Earth or living on the Earth or anything like that. But if you destroy the Earth, then you don't have no Earth to live on, you rich cunt. So yeah. But okay, that was like an hour and a half, a little more actually, like hour and 40. And that is my first fucking newsletter, and we'll just get better at it as we go forward. That's episode 1.